Hey, it's DV with this week's question. So, what I would like to know from you is what cracks do you have in your vessel? All right. What cracks do you have in your vessel? In other words, what traumas, traits, and flaws do you have in your life, and what are you currently working on? And what have you done to repair those? So, we all have these issues. Some of them follow us throughout our lifetime, some of them unfortunately, we pass on to our kids. So just a little trust, transparency, and vulnerability for you, for what it's worth. Um, so one thing that I'm studying and discussing in therapy right now, the better part of the last 4 visits, probably the duration of my therapy experience the last 5 years has been locus of control. Locus of control. So locus of control, um, in a nutshell, is how you view your level of control over the successes and failures that happen in your life, and ultimately, what is your emotional and mental reaction to those successes and failures, right? So, for me, it started at a very early age. Um, I drowned to death. I almost drowned. Almost drowned in the Pacific Ocean. Um, and to kind of further drive the knife in, I was bullied, and essentially that's what preceded that experience, to the point where they actually had to dispatch the lifeguard and pumping water out of my chest, so on and so forth. Be that as it may, that's something that I'm still currently pushing through. But interesting enough, my therapist this past week saw some similarities in my ongoing disposition and ongoing challenges with handling life stressors, and saw a very eerie comparison to that experience, right? So, basically, what he was saying is, I know why you feel the way you feel. I know why you feel things are so overwhelming, because it was much like that experience where you drowned, right? You have so many things happening in your life, so many things happening all at once, so many intense things that it becomes so overwhelming that it's hard to get your breath. It's hard to get any real momentum, right? And for every time that you feel like you have momentum, there's an undercurrent of issues that takes you right under that, right? So for me, I felt that I have a very limited and very external um, sense of control over any given situations, because of a lot of the things that happened both in my childhood and some of the things that have happened throughout my career, and definitely the things that have happened since I've retired and had this experience with my family, right? So my wife is a heart transplant recipient. Um, that road has been arduous, to say the least. In addition to that, quite recently, my oldest daughter contracted COVID. Thankfully, thankfully, my wife is still in the hospital to where they're not in contact, but it's the sheer principle. Um, and since then, myself and my other daughter have we've showed up as negative, but it's just the sheer principle of what that would mean and how that would affect our family, right? So I've internalized that, much like a lot of us men do, um, and that's become a real challenge, to be honest with you. And that's one of the things that I'm having to work through. I'm definitely not perfect. I definitely have my days where I feel like I've got a grasp, and then much like the example that I gave, there's times where there are other issues that come up, and it's one after the other and after the other, and before you know it, the thought avalanche gets to you, and so now it's a matter of how do you respond to that. So going forward, fast forward, um, my 18-year-old has a very similar yet eerie mindset of lack of control over outside circumstances. And who can blame her, right? You know, your mom has been sick, in and out of the hospital 2 to 3 dozen times in the course of the last 2.5 years. You've contracted COVID. You know, your dad is trying to hold it together the best way he knows how, and that's on by a thread. Um, your big sister is moved on to bigger and better things, married with her husband far away, and your little sister is still trying to get it together. So where does the support come from, right? Um, so that's a very difficult task, and it's a very difficult question to answer. Um, what I'm charged with is it's not enough for me to do the work on account of me, right? It's not just about me. It was never about me. It's about my family, particularly my kids. So, like it or not, unfortunately, I have to peel the scab back on my own wounds, right? I have to show them what healing looks like. And sometimes that means being uncomfortable and being in situations that don't really benefit me. And that's par for the course. Um, and much like the serenity prayer goes, you know, accepting what you cannot change and radically accepting that I ultimately have no control over any of this shit. And I get people that ask me, people that inbox me, and may call me out of the blue to check on me. And shout out to you, and you know who you are. But I get those, how do you do it? Man, how do you hold it together? Hey, man, it ain't me. I have no clue. You know, I don't have that type of strength. And that's something that I told my therapist. I continue to tell them. It's all God. It's all God. I've tried to check out. um, and yet here I am. You know, here I am giving my account and my story and my version of what it looks like to persevere. So in short, that's something that I want to know from you. I want you to comment below. I want you to inbox me. I want you to call. I want you to, hey, if you feel froggy, do your own video. I want to know, what cracks do you have in your vessel? What are you doing to repair those cracks? And what are you doing ultimately to prevent those cracks from showing up in your own children and the people that are around you? I got questions, bruh. I got questions. I'm here for it all, man. Let's talk.